Recording. All right, welcome everyone to our weekly local area discovery session. This is session number 32, and today's date is October 17th. And I'll pass things over to Al so he can give us project updates.
Thank you very much. So today's the last day of our Sprint 17, and some of the things that were covered, some of the items that were covered in this last sprint. So everybody knows we had UAT bug fixes and enhancements. I'm going to show you those over in the staging environment today, because we haven't moved them into UAT, but we'll be moving those into UAT once the sprint's over. But I do want you to see those, so we'll look at that. There was some customer intake, self-services and info-only services work, customer profile is being shelled up, and then some service collections work probably is still on the way. ETPL pre-screening pages, we wired those together, so hopefully I'm thinking next week we'll be able to demo those. And then data migration work is ongoing. We're getting that all set up to move that database at any time from IWDS to what we call a staging database, which allows us to then have the scripts move it into databases in the new structure. So that's going to keep going. Probably see that on our list a little bit every week until we got that process so we can push a button. It does take a while, of course, but we want to make sure that process is very well defined and working well, so that that infamous day that we migrate and turn the switch, we'll be able to execute that with some confidence. So that's all going on, and probably some other stuff I haven't got in here. But we, as you all probably know, we're continuing our discovery process. That's the requirements process, definition of requirements, the screens, the logic, the rules, the business rules, and looking through all that. The business analysts are working with state folks, and then of course with you. And those are on customer intake. That's an important part. This whole customer workflow is being worked through. Obviously, that's the center, the hub of the whole system. Applications, getting those online and working through those. And then universal career plan, assessments, and case notes. And then, of course, the measured skills gain. We actually are moving that, some of that into development this next sprint, which will be good. Negotiated goals for IPATs, and any management training program. I've got a lot of content for that now that we will work through with the state next week. So I got to get that all into a good document so that we can start fleshing out those requirements. And that's the building, the editing, and of course, the approval process of a training program. And then federal reporting will keep going in the stream along the back end, because we need to make sure we're capturing the right data and reporting it correctly to DOL. So those, a lot of things going on in a lot of different streams of work, and just wanted you to make sure you knew kind of the subject matters that we have on the table. All right. Any questions with status, and do any on the team have any other things to say about status? Okay, we're going to have our working session today. Olivia has a little bit on MSG. I think she has a question. I have a few questions on partners, LWIA partners. Kind of want to know a little bit more about those and how they're used from a local perspective. And then I'm going to try to demo the UAT upgrade stuff that's actually in staging, like I said, in the app. And I also want to look through that OneNote a little bit more and ask a few questions on some of those newer responses in there. And I will say that we have introduced some other state folks into the UAT process, so you'll probably see some other notes coming in. So some of those notes may not be from the LWIA perspective, but from the DCO perspective, but that's okay. We'll just talk through them and make sure I understand exactly where you're coming from on those. So without further ado, I will give it over to Olivia for her questions on MSG.
Thanks, Al. So as we were doing some of our discovery work for MSG, we were really looking at the post-secondary transcript or report card MSG. And I was working through the SME team with Mark and Paulo, we had a question come up that we wanted to pose to you guys to better understand how this was encountered in the field, or if it was encountered in the field. Um, when you guys are enrolling customers into a credit-based training program, how many of those customers are you enrolling in fewer than 12 credit hours, which is considered part-time over the course of the year? So they would be less than, 12 credit hours in one semester, which is full-time, and less than 12 credit hours over the course of a year, which is part-time. How many are you enrolling under that who don't even meet the part-time requirement? Or are you enrolling folks in that few of credits?
So I think it depends on the training program because there's training programs where, like some nursing programs in community colleges may not have classes during the summer, or if they do, it's like one or two classes, and so it's going to be uh, less than 12. And then because each class is like almost like a prerequisite for the next, some semesters they may only have 8 credits worth of classes because that's what they need to get in order to move forward in the training program. So even though it's 8 credits, that's considered full time for them for that semester because that's the only amount of credits they can take before they can take the remaining classes needed for their degree.
And then the following semester, though, you would roll them and at least 4 more credits to meet the 12 credits over the year for part-time.
It depends on how the program is structured. Sometimes,
Okay.
the next semester it might be 10 credits, or it might be 14 credits, depending on the number of credits per each class. So, like microbiology might be 4 credits, and, nursing 101 might be 2 credits. And so it also depends on what classes are coming up next that needs to be taken in sequence that's going to determine those credit hours. So in that aspect of it, like one semester you could have 8, and then the next semester you could have 14. So based upon the MSG definition that we currently have, you would have to combine both of those 2 semesters to say they got a minimum of 12 credit hours in 2 consecutive semesters.
Right. But if you had somebody who came in and said, well, I just want to take, 4 credits, like one class every semester, is that something you would move forward with, or would you
Oh,
push
no.
to have them at least meeting a part-time requirement?
For our office, it's full time as possible.
Okay.
So the only time that they would really go below the 12 credit hours would be if the curriculum dictates that they cannot get any more credit hours than what they are able to get for that semester.
Okay.
Same here. It's if they as many classes as possible because we don't want them languishing in
Right.
a program for 2 years that was only 9 semester hours. So I'm exaggerating a bit, but I would say similar to what Paul said. Yeah, it depends on the nature of the program. We do get some folks who I don't know how often frequent or common it is, but we do get some who maybe they started going to school and on their own, and then they got laid off, or they took a break to work for a few years, and then they got laid off, and they're coming to us and trying to finish something, a community college program and maybe a certificate program, not a degree. So yeah, I mean, we occasionally might get some who only need maybe like 9 or 12 or maybe 15 semester hours. So you're only talking about like maybe 4 to 5 classes, 3 to 5 classes, um, uh, to get and maybe even just like an IT certification, like their CompTIA Network Plus and A Plus, like they may only need a few classes, and if they have to take them in sequence, then it's possible. Like I said, it's not terribly common, but it's not unheard of, where
Okay.
they may only take one, like maybe 3 or 6 um, hours, and then maybe 3 the next. So I can definitely ask if you guys want, a better estimate. I can ask, our career planners and the manager of that unit, like how often does this happen, where we would get someone who possibly and regarding, related to this MSG related, question or survey, how many, may not even get 12 hours in 2 semesters combined because it's such a short program. But I can definitely try to ask and get you a better number. But it, like I said, it's not unheard of. It does happen.
We are the same way. I would say we repeat exactly what Paul said and what Rory said as well. And we encourage all of them to do full-time, if at all possible. But we do also have instances of youth, for example, coming into the program who start out maybe doing work experience or something, and then they want to explore different avenues as far as their training in the classroom goes. And so they might start out and only have an option of picking up like maybe 2 classes at a time or something when they first get started, because they're also, they have other commitments, or maybe they have small children, or they're trying to juggle their part-time work and classroom work. So there are situations like that as well, where if it's a special circumstance, we would allow them to be part-time for a semester or 2 to make sure that they're going to be as successful as possible and address any other issues that they've got.
Okay.
Hi, I wanted to chime in as well. This is Monique from Elwell 24. And just like with all of the other ones that have spoken, we recommend 12 hours. That's part of the policy. Well, full time, whatever that is for that training institution. But just like with the nursing students or those that have extenuating circumstances, I wanted to mention that sometimes students fall within that part-time range when there is a shortage of professors too, depending on that training institution. We've run into that where there were not enough instructors to move forward with a class that they were scheduled to take.
Okay. Taking notes. Mark, is there anything else you want to add to what we heard? I feel like this answered kind of what we were looking for.
I think the one, does anyone find a training program that uses actual hours that would not get you an equivalent of 12 credit hours? Does that make sense? And I saw you saw an email,
Yes.
Olivia, earlier. I was in a meeting, so I didn't get a chance to read. If we've got clarification, I was just curious if that's even an issue. So like we're trying to figure out what is the equivalent of actual hours to credit hours, and then if we can apply it or even need to apply it to this part-time versus full-time to address the MSG. So maybe Olivia, if you want to answer first what you found. I saw your emails, and then or Laura maybe sent that first, and then I wonder if anyone's even experienced that.
Yeah, Laura just gave some additional information that a clock hour is defined as a 60-minute span of time between 50 and 60 minutes of actual class instruction. And no more than 1 clock hour can be assigned to any 60-minute period. But that just kind of built off of what you had sent about, either 37.5 or 30 clock hours is equivalent to full-time for the breakdown of semesters and trimesters. And then a quarter is 25 or 20, depending on the situation.
Right, so I wonder if any local areas yeah, Rory, enroll people in actual hour courses, then they have to worry about whether they're gonna be in the MSG or not. Rory?
Yeah, thanks. So, and yeah, regionally, we've started kind of putting together like a brainstorming group with our area and this, just a couple of our neighboring counties, Eloise, um, and yes, and we saw something. Paula and Laura Dom were really helpful in sending us. We sent a couple of samples, like, hey, one school does this, one school records, grades and exam grades and unit exam grades as this. Could this? I mean, how would we? We know like the you know in reality, like the reality is like we know that, like, okay, obviously the person started with like zero knowledge of nursing, and they're at 92%. So we know that that's a gain. It's just like, kind of, how do we record it? What category is it under? So yeah, they did mention something, and I'm sorry, they might have even recommended a Teagle, but to reference about that, but I hadn't had a chance to look at it. This was just like a week ago, it wasn't that long ago. So, but we have, and a couple of them, there's a school called Ambria College of Nursing, there's Verve College, and they're actually, so like they're not degree. Well, actually, Ambria is a degree conferring institution. Verve isn't a degree conferring institution, but like they are accredited, like beyond just like IBHE and Illinois Department of Financial Professional Regulation Nursing Board. They have like, is it ACEHE? It's HEE, accreditation, American, or accreditation of Council for Health Education or something. But it's it's one of those like Department of Education recognized accrediting agencies, and they're Title IV, they're Pell eligible. So, but I don't really know, like, if their classes transfer, like if somebody wanted to go and from their LPN program to then, go into an RN program, associate's nursing program at a community college. I don't know if those classes actually, oh, thank you, Libby. I saw you just posted that. I don't know if their classes transfer, credit hour wise, but yeah, they do. So they do clock hours. And yeah, that we're kind of like, well, if there's a conversion chart of some sort, or like you said, if it's 60 minutes of study, yeah, that would be helpful, because it's we do have a decent number of these schools that kind of fall in between. It's not just online computer classes or something, but they're not a community college either. But they're kind of in between. Like they do have, some of them even have like an accreditation for, the type of education, in this case, allied health or health sciences education that they provide. But yeah, we do have a decent amount of programs that we work with that do measure it in terms of clock hours, because they're not like a credit based in that sense.
Paul, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so some of this stuff that comes up is like we have med certs programs, even at community colleges, they may have like the continuing education programs, and stuff like massage therapy, CNC machining, and not necessarily means that like the CNC machining doesn't necessarily mean that it's credit based, but it could be offered on the continuing ed side. And so those are done by clock hours and not credit hours per se, right? So massage therapy, we've had a few people go through that, and they have to complete like 7 or no, like 11 modules in the program that's up here, 11 modules, which totals up to like 920 hours that they have to clock in for those 11 modules to be able to qualify to test for the massage therapy certification. So if you're trying to equate how many credit hours equals how many hours, that would be helpful if we're able to utilize that to record the MSG. So I'm assuming based on this conversation, it's being implied that if we can make an equivalency of hours, we would be able to use it as an MSG for those programs that are hourly based. And I guess that's kind of like a question.
Yeah, so we're looking kind of at the full-time credit and then clock hours. And then in the footnote 11 of that T goal, it recommends the states create policy around that. So that's what we're looking at doing as we expand on the MSG stuff in 2.0. So yeah. And we have some information we've gathered around conversion that we're still trying to like verify and get put into the system so that you guys can figure out, okay, they got 40 clock hours. What does that mean? Is that
Right.
enough? Is it not enough? And
Well, and if you take a look at like a semester in a traditional credit program, right? And if you say 12 credit hours, they're registered for 12 credit hours, that means they're 12 credit hours per week that they're in class, presumably. And a semester is about 14 to 16 weeks. So at 16 weeks, that'd be 192 class hours that they would be in.
And if I want, can I piggyback off of what Paul is saying about the MedCert? You had mentioned MedCerts, and so I know we work with the MedCerts program as well, and theirs is based on like program completion, and they go through and complete. It's not really clock hours. It's not credit hours. It's more so they just have these different courses that they have to take. It's online. It's self-paced. And then they kind of go through each lesson, and at the end of the lesson, they take an exam, and then it kind of just we receive the biweekly student progress reports, and on those reports, it just tells us how the percent of the program that they've completed. So, like it may say they've completed 34% and they should be at about 29% right now, or vice versa kind of thing. So I don't know how I think I had sent this to Paula before, maybe last year when we first encountered this program, because it was different for us, in order to try to understand how to record the MSGs. So I don't know how that could be incorporated in the policy. I don't know if any other LWIAs work with MedCerts in that way.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I completely blanked on that one, but yes, because they operate on modules too. I call them modules. So each module has like 13 classes or 13 assignments that they have to do, complete it, and then they have to test out of it. So we've been using that test completion as the MSG.
Yeah, that's what we were instructed to do by Paula. Yep.
Yeah, and that would probably fall more under the skills progression of passing an exam, assessment, or test, or maybe even training milestone. I don't think Paula is on this call to say for sure, but I don't think that would fall under the post-secondary transcript report card MSG.
Makes sense.
Mark, please correct me if you interpreted that differently, but just based on the conversations we've been having.
I would agree. I think you're correct in how we've been interpreting that. Yeah, we'll keep working to finalize this and put this into policy so that we can get all the MSGs we need to and want to. It's just the guidance that it was odd that they didn't touch on credit or clock hours when they're talking about this part-time deal versus just credit hours. So we've just got to figure out what that works out to so that we can capture them accurately.
I think that's all I have. Mark, we can talk offline more. We'll have another meeting to talk about the hours numbers that we got and getting those reviewed. I don't have anything else. We just wanted to kind of dig into this conversation from the local perspective and make sure we had some of this information before we continued with these conversations, because that'll really help us as we keep moving forward. And I see there's some stuff in the chat too, so I'll grab that out and save that with the notes that I'm taking.
Yeah, and before you move on, I think, and maybe I missed it, part of your original question, Olivia, was, I'm just curious from the few that are representing local areas. Sounds like you do have those. How many times are you feeling you've got those part-time situations and missing out on an MSG because of it? Is it frequent or never really happens, or?
I think for LE of 17, we pretty much encounter, when you're saying part-time, you're talking about the people that never actually reach the 12 credit hours
Correct.
in the year,
Correct.
right? So for us, we typically enroll most of our people in at least 6 credit hours. Like if they're working, they're required to take at least 6 credit hours per semester. If they're not working, they're required to be full-time. The main time that we encounter people that are in less is due to they're at the end of their programs, for example. That's kind of when it happens, but we're able to then capture that MSG based by the credential. So maybe they're in like their last semester and they only have 1 or 2 classes left to take. So that's all they have to take. So if I had to put a number on it, I would say it's not very often that happens for us. Because if we do have people in that situation, we're able to capture the MSG based on the credential that they end up earning, because they usually are in their like last semester or something like that.
Great, thanks, Tori. Anyone else have a idea if you want to share?
I would say in our area, it's probably a handful each program year that end up in that situation.
Okay, thanks, Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
But because I was just curious if it even happened. I mean, I think we need to address policy, but I didn't want to make a big deal of something that never really occurs. It sounds like at least it does happen from a credit perspective. It'd be interesting to see if it happens from a clock hour perspective, but we'll still get the guidance finalized and put something into the policy that addresses it so that it's not a restriction on anyone if it does happen.
Any other comments or questions before I pass things back over to Al? All right, well, thank you all so much for your time and input on this topic. Al, I'll pass it back to you.
Okay, so this is probably going to be, this is not as complex as Olivia's discovery process, but I've had several discussions with different people about LWIA partnerships. Okay. And so when I ask you this, you're probably going to say, wow, he doesn't know anything. I apologize if that's the way you feel about it, but I'm trying to figure out, looking at the associations and of the data in IWDS and looking at the reasons where we use this partnerships, how we're using it. So my first, before leaving it with an open-ended question of saying, basically what's your understanding of how partnerships are used in IWDS? My assumption is we're either reporting off of those or we're constricting, using them in a security kind of concept where we're restricting data from a user's perspective. Okay, now I can't find exactly, I can find office reporting and stuff like that. And of course I go through Service Finder and I can definitely understand office's concepts and how they're tied to LWIAs, but I'm going to bring it over here to my screen. Some of you probably have never even seen this screen because you don't get into user management. I'm going to bring this back over here so I can type some notes. Okay. So you can see here, I got myself here up in IWDS, and you can see when you put in a user or you configure a user, we have Office, WorkNet centers. And we have that. So these are the settings for me right now. I happen to be on a DCO, so you're not going to see much. I'm going to move to a different user so you can see something. And then underneath here, because I'm LWIA's 00 state, you're not going to see any real offices except that default one, and you're going to see partnerships, IDES and DOL. I've still got to dig into what we're doing exactly with that type of user, but that's all I have. But let me go to something that is so we can kind of seed this discussion a little bit. And let me go to so let me go to let me pick on Amy because I know she's in Chicago. Okay. Okay, so you can see here Amy is in 7 and she's in this Chicago workforce partnership, which I believe looks, my assumption is by 0, it's kind of the the default one here. These are the different offices, worknet centers in that Chicago LWIA. Okay, there's, I don't know, maybe 50. I'm not for sure what's there. And then here is our partnerships. Now, so I'm gonna tell me about the importance of the partnership designation when we are configuring a user. That's my open question first. Who can tell me about that? What's your understanding of that when you say, well, I'm in this is probably the generic one, but if I was in Chicago Heights Workforce Center, is that just telling, what is that partnership information telling anyone? And this probably is someone from 7s, because we really don't have this partnership thing as big anywhere besides 7.
Hi, it's Julia. That's a good question. Does everyone hear me?
Yep. Thank you.
So I just recently was established as a state local admin for in IWDS. I wish Tommy G was still on our team with us to explain more. However, I need to look myself, but what you would put for, I believe, the IWNC might be, or the partner might be different sometimes than the original, the IWNC. In some cases, I might be wrong.
And I can tell that when we come in, a lot of these line up, like you're saying, a lot of these line up 1 for 1, right? A lot of these WorkNet centers or offices are lined up with the WorkNet Center partnership 1-to-1, probably most of them. Okay. So my question, I guess, is I couldn't find reporting on this I can find all kinds of reporting at the office level, right? The WorkNet Center level. That makes sense to me. So like if we connect, and I'm assuming from a WorkNet Center office perspective, that's also probably kind of configuring what customers we're going to see as maybe I can see everything, but maybe it's just, or what customers I'm working with or whatever. But, and also obviously if I'm from an LWIA perspective, obviously that's going to filter what kind of providers I see, and services, but I can't find what we're doing with this partnership other than just saying, hey, they happen to be working or at this partnership.
If I can chime in, Because I'm also fairly new to the local system admin role. I mean, maybe about a couple of years now. But typically when I'm entering a user, it is in our area 17. It's usually staff that are working directly with the Title I program. And we have 5 different offices. So in WorkNet centers, we have the comprehensive, and then we have satellite offices. And so usually, same as, I'm sorry, I'm not sure who that was on the floor, but usually those 2 are the same when I'm entering that staff. Then we have our youth providers. And so these youth providers are obviously providers that get WIOA funding. And again, usually that information is the same based on the WorkNet center and then the partner. Sometimes in the past, I've seen it where the Illinois WorkNet Center was the comprehensive center, and then the Illinois WorkNet partner was the actual name of the youth provider. That's what I believe the person that did this before me used. That's how they were set up. So it was, for example, in our local area, we partner with it's a program called the READY program. They're an alternative education. And so I would see where the Illinois WorkNet Center would be our Champaign local comprehensive center. However, the partner would be the READY program. Whenever I'm setting up their staff who have access to IWDS and can, get in there and do case notes and things like that on our youth providers. So I believe as I've been kind of digging around in this, however, I just had an instance come up where I got really confused because I think whatever is put in Illinois WorkNet on that service provider page, it seems that that's what you're allowed to then pick under the Illinois WorkNet Center or Illinois WorkNet Center part, or I think the Illinois WorkNet Center. That's what kind of allows you to pick that, if I'm correct. Does anybody know if
Yes,
that
you mean
okay?
you mean in Service Finder where
Yes.
you and you want to know the office is connected to LWIA,
Right.
say 14 or whatever. I'm not sure what you said.
Yeah, we're 17. Yeah.
17. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yep,
17.
that's okay.
So do you mind if I just pull you up here?
Sure.
So Oriana, what's your last name?
Rohne, R-H-O-N-E.
R-H-O-N-E. Okay, that's probably enough. Yeah. All right. So if we go under your 17, these are your offices, right? Okay. And those, if we go to Service Finder, we would find those offices. And then these, and it just happens that IWDS doesn't filter these. So that's actually a good thing. And I don't know that I don't know if there is a relationship there. I'd have to look at that, but these are your different partnerships. And I don't know if all these are valid, but.
Right. And so, yeah, that's where I'm just not, I believe that's what is listed in Service Finder. Is that correct? Or like how do they?
I think the offices are listed. I'm pretty sure the offices are listed these are listed in Service Finder. I don't think these are.
Right. So how that's the part I just could never figure out. I'm like,
yeah.
How is these partners showing up here? Where does that come from?
Well, yeah, I think it's data that's kept in there, trying to be, managed, I think, by tech folks on request, but I don't think there's a good flow of that from like Service Finder into this. But even more important, I'm not even sure if we're using this information at all on IWDS, this partnership information, because I cannot, if I go to reporting, I can't, there's 2 ways you want to connect you would want to connect services or providers or users with partnerships. And that would be either if we want to report off of that, right? Or so we could like break down data based upon partnership, or if we want to limit the what someone wants to see as a
Well,
default, say.
I
right?
do know that when we enter customers, we do attach them to offices.
Yes.
So, yeah, so I do know
Yes.
that piece, but other
Yes,
than
and
that,
that's important because then we can get information like the number of registrants or the number of inquirants or the number of we can get all that kind of information by office. That's very important. And that I totally get. Okay. So I'm just having a hard time, and I probably just haven't hit the right person that says, oh, well, the reason we put that in there was, you know, maybe it's just to know who, like, from a let's even get a little bit deeper in this. From a these are usually like contracted entities, right? They're contracted organizations, correct?
usually our youth providers, yeah, that we do our, well, and then we have our normal partners, but yeah, they're usually contracted.
Yeah, so like the only thing I can find, and so the only thing I can find in the database on these is literally a name and a number. Like I don't even have information like contacts that are associated to that specific partner, or or services provided, or address or anything on those partnerships. The only thing we carry in IWDS is that name and that number, which is interesting to me. But
Yeah.
all right. Okay. I won't belabor this too much more. So
We do have a couple hands up. I don't know who was first,
cool,
Rory or
cool.
Dan.
Dan, looks like you're up. Yep. Dan White, were you up?
Will you bring me my user up for a second?
Oh, sure.
And and the only reason I'm suggesting this is because even though I've been around for a super long time, I honestly do not remember anything about what that is. So if you click that drop down,
Looks like you really don't have any. It looks
Right.
like you got a default one that's the Workforce Center, which is your workforce connection. It's the same, it's the same. And a lot of these LWs, Dan, are the same way. They just have one for
The one
all
thing
the
that-
offices. Yeah.
potentially makes sense. And I would suggest maybe you just ask like Mark Saladino if he's still available. Like, does he know what this was for? But the only thing that sort of makes sense is that maybe at some point in time, there was, by entering partners. So like in our case, we subcontract with Goodwill to do our career services. And I wonder if it was a way of just like separating or doing some sort of reporting. I don't know. I mean, obviously we've never done it that way because I always pick the Workforce Connect, 03, which is our LWIA number, and
Yep.
haven't done anything with it, whether that be right or wrong. I see the potential,
Yeah.
where whose employee is that user kind
Right.
of methodology, but we just have never done it, and that's all I
You're
have to
right.
say.
That makes sense. Let me go to Sarah. You don't care if I bring your ID up, do you?
Nope, not at all.
Okay. Just take a look at the 20s. I think you said mention Goodwill. I think there might be one in here for Goodwill. Well, guess not. Yeah,
No,
this
we just have
what's
all of
National
our,
Able, sir.
yep, National Able,
That's
which is a
your,
required partner.
yeah. And you might have a user when you were back with 20, you might have had a user that you selected National Able on. Or no?
Yeah,
Okay. And what did that tell you? Did you ever say, oh, I know how to contact them or something? But you can't find this information unless you actually look them up if you were administrator and you were able to look them up in here. I don't know that there's anywhere else
right.
that I can actually find like a list of partnerships or a list of you know, a list of partnerships by LOE or by office or any connection to those. You know, I just can't find reports or any kind of data or screens for that. So I'm like, what are we using this for? So, okay, I will
Rory
dig.
has his hand up. He might have
Go ahead, Rory.
some.
Yeah. Have you got a use
Yeah,
for it?
so if you, and I'm sorry, I have to hop off in about 10 or 15 minutes, but if you want to go ahead and pull me up, you can. So primarily that was actually I was my I was going to actually ask a question first. But now I can maybe try to answer it. I was going to say the oh, you got it's Callahan, you can just put C.
Callahan? Okay.
So I was gonna say, when you say partners, you know, are you talking about like with a G, or just put CAL and it's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And that's fine. And then if you put RORY, I'm sure
You'll find it.
I didn't know if you meant like IDES, you know, like mandated partners. But if you go back a screen,
Yeah.
if you go at the bottom, and then and it's up. Where's your user?
Maybe my ID doesn't have a menu item that I need to see that, maybe.
No, I was just going to say it was on the, scroll up. There you go. Search IWDS users at the very top.
Yeah, that's where it was.
And then just type in C and then, RORY. So then search. Now, right there, you'll see I have different
Yes.
numbers. So our office has moved over the last several years. So we went back in at the tail end of the IETC days. We were co-located with Lombard in the one stop, the Lombard local IDES office. So that any customers that were entered by IWDS users at that time with that IWNC number assigned to us. So you'll see. So if you go ahead and if you want to, you can click view. There was one that we used to have a 0, and then we had a 100 was a number. And I'm not sure, that'd be a good question. Maybe, for Mark Saladino or somebody. I'm not sure how or when those got assigned. If we picked them or if DCO just kind of assigned them.
Yeah, I think the office actually gets picked at the customer entry.
Okay. And so, so if you went back and did like a report with us as the provider, or for people enrolled at different providers, you could actually go way back and see. I mean, but we've been number 200 here since, I don't know, 2010 or something. So the current workNet center, but so that's part of it. Or if so when I believe the IWNC number is mostly for contractors and basically affiliates, offices. So that's why the different numbers are in there. And as far as like reporting, I mean, you could, if you were trying to get like participants outcome data or something, if it was within a couple of years of when we first moved, and we might have still had people whose service records were created with our staff ID numbers, or our staff users, IWS users that were still under the 100 WorkNet Center DuPage number, you would have to, at that time, you would have had to run like 2 reports or select both of those IWNC numbers. So, but now we're so far beyond our move that we don't have to go back and look at that. I mean, we can just run it under IWNC number. The other thing I was going to say is when you're doing searching or adding, if you scroll down to the bottom of the screen you're on and just click cancel next to save, and then if you go back, and then if you go return to search, so when you click user type at the very bottom, that's something I think they're working on at the very bottom, their very last option where it's above enabled. Yeah, there's only 2 right now. So if you were to click employer, that's like what we always use for training providers. When we're adding a training provider to give them access. So I was just going to say, hopefully they'll expand the types in that drop box, give more options in there. But if you don't pick staff, I don't believe that there would be an IWNC number, assigned to that particular user. I can give you real quick example, if you, on their last name, if you type in MEITZ
MEI.
T, and then first name AD. MEIT, not C, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
And then that'll be, you'll see Adela Mites. Now,
Mhm.
see, now if you go down to user type, unclick staff,
Ah,
and then now
yeah.
she's our College of DuPage liaison who actually has an office in our offices.
Yes.
Here, but see, but she's not really, so she's like a partner, but she's not a partner. So her IWNC number is going to be 0. And if you view her either one of her profiles, see, you don't get any of that user menu.
Yep.
So the IWNC number is only for staff, and then it's only, I think, it was supposed to be used for, if LWE has had multiple IETCs or now WorkNet affiliates, and then the staff users. So basically any place that gets, WIOA funding to provide, WIOA funded services, whether it's, just career services, counseling, or staff that could write ITAs, so sorry, that's kind of my
No. Okay.
somewhat
So
limited knowledge of that.
I know I'm coming with you.
How it
I think
works.
I followed all of that.
But to
Do
your
you have
point, as far as
anything, do you have any information about partner?
but as far as the purpose of keeping it, I mean, it's, yeah, I'm not sure how you would move forward, like how to incorporate this into the new system. Like, that's a good question. That one, I don't have suggestions on to answer that
Okay.
one.
All right.
But I'm just saying I think when IWS was created, that was the function.
Yeah. Okay. I'm kind of getting that same answer from a lot of people. So at least it's consistent. Okay. All right. We'll dig into that. I'll dig into that partnership thing a little bit more, see if I can find anywhere where that data cross-reference. We don't carry too much with that data, just like I said, a name and a number. But I'll dig in a little bit more.
Yeah, it's weird. Like if you were to go in and if it still had the Illinois WorkNet Center number 100, WorkNet DuPage Career Center, which maybe it's been purged since recently, but it used to be in there. We used to have 2. Yeah, I don't know if it pulls up the actual address, 837 Westmore Myers, Lombard, Illinois, or I don't know where to find that. But I just know that like I said, in the drop, like we used to have 2 IWNC numbers because we at one time had another location.
Yeah, and that's interesting too. We actually keep the office addresses and office contacts, and those are sent over from Service Finder also when they're updated or created.
Oh, okay.
Keep. I just don't have any information on partnerships. So,
Yeah,
okay, let's get into our next topic. Let me pull this away. And we're going to get to UAT. Okay, so what I have here up, let me actually get into here a little bit. What if I even actually, that's interesting. I don't know if I caught that one, but anyway, what I'm going to show you hopefully with is some of these have been fixed and they're not in UAT yet, so don't get too excited yet because we'll push those in once this sprint gets over. But let me actually get into some of these that have. I'll try to use my memory here to find and show you these without having to make you sick by going back and forth into that note and taking all that time. But here, one of the pieces, I believe it was, I don't know who it was, but said, hey, we had this expanded. In fact, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you some differences here. So here is the UATU we're seeing, and you see this was a big part of the screen, and also, which is probably not as relevant as some of the other search fields, and it took up a lot of space. And also you see this search and reset was down below the screen. That was one of the comments. And now you'll see that this search, this filter here for social services has been changed. couple of nice things about it. It not only does it jump out when you need it, you can also pick a whole what I would say category for any of those social services if that's important. When you do pick that, it'll say, you know, you've got that selected in there. Fund, I think, is working the same as it did, which says you've got 5 items selected. And then, so that's been fixed to be a little bit better. I think we still got, we're still working on those buttons to be a little bit sticky or floating or stick to the bottom of your window. Well, I think that's still one that's out there. Another person said, hey, can we put identification as one of the default columns, which most of the time it's FEIN. We've taken care of that. It used to be in Business Sense or something like that. So that's been changed also on this screen. I think that is the only 2 things on this particular screen. Let me get into, try to find something here. Okay. All right. Let me see here. What we have here. I think this is pretty much the same. When I go into we got some changes in here. In fact, this is not a good one to go into because I don't have any contacts in here. Let me get into one that has maybe has some contacts. Okay, so now we've pulled in this primary indicator here to this list. Let me see if I can find a better one than that. It should have been prepared, sorry. Let me just go in here. There might be a bunch of junk data in here. Okay, so you can see we pulled this into this list. I don't know if we had sorting capability before. We have that. And then it shows you which is the primary contact. So that's been fixed. This here, we show social services, and we're going to show entity functions this way. This whole capability in here is changed. Now this works much like you saw in that filter. It actually works this way, and it doesn't overlap. Before, you had a problem with this was open always, and this list ran into that other list. So this is all actually fixed now, and those show up in there. And then the next thing we did was we added confirmation of address. You can pick either one. You can pick the recommended one here. Sometimes there's not much more than just, but this is the actual official one from the post office. We actually reach out to an API that, an interface that gives us suggestions on what's the right address according to what you put in. You can pick that one and continue, or you can keep the one you had, and it replaces that on the save. So that's new. This shows up. You don't have to, before we had those pills, this all shows up now. You can see this, whatever the settings are, without having to go into edit or anything like that. And I'm going to show you relationship changes here in a second. Trying to remember here. We'll go back through the notes here in a minute. Let me go to a relationship one I know that has relationships. Let's go into this one here. Okay. Some changes here. We've got the sorting on here now. And then it has a default sort. Default sorts to, I thought it was, I think it must not be. I thought it was default sort to, I think active comes before inactive. I don't see any inactives here, but obviously this doesn't have a date on it, so it's inactive. But actives are on the top, inactives after that. Then we sort inside of here by, these are sorted now within that relationship, and then they're sorted this direction too. You can also sort them like this on any of these columns. We added all these columns. You'll see a new thing here called local relationship ID. This is the one which used to be the relationship ID, and you can still set this to anything you want. This is a generated ID. So we had a lot of discussion on, hey, should we have a standard relationship ID? I think it was probably 50-50, and of the LWIAs that we polled, and they said, some of them said, no, I really like the way we use a standard relationship ID. Please don't change it. Others said, that'd be great to change it. So we did both. We just said, you know what, we're going to have a generated number. What this generated number right now means is this, well, this is not a good example, but it's supposed to be LWIA first. Okay, let me see if I can get one here. Let's see if there's a relationship here. Yeah, so it's supposed to be LWIA first, the year that relationship was created, and then a sequential number within there. So you have up to 1,000, so to speak, relationships you could put for that LWIA for that year. Hopefully that'll be enough. Anyway, that's a generated number, nothing special other than that's what we did right now. If that gets, if someone ends up saying, well, they would like to be different, we can do something different. Doesn't really matter. You don't have to deal with that. When you go into this, you still have the capability. Let me go back because I wouldn't have that capability unless I added a new one, but you still have your local relationship ID, and that will help it, just in case maybe you have that relationship ID tied to some accounting system or something else. We're not going to take that away from you. So that's still the same 12 alphanumeric and up to 99, I guess, sequential numbers there. So that's basically all the same as it was. But you'll have a generated number now. Okay. So sorting, we changed this a little bit. This was wrapping, if you remember, it was wrapping the date. Actually, you can probably see that. Let's take a look and see. Well, it doesn't show that, but it was wrapping the date first instead of evidently that fix got over there. Instead of constricting this column more, now it'll constrict this column more since it's going to be multiple lines anyway, and it doesn't wrap the date on you. So you can sort by any of those fields now too. So what else? All that nonsense with the let me go over here and edit this location. Okay, so this nonsense in here has been fixed. If this was Springfield, Illinois, now that's simple, works. And when you select a county like Sangamon, it filters them. You can just select it like that. You're not, that problem with the phone is fixed now too. It doesn't say, hey, you haven't entered a phone before you even get into the field. So that's all fixed. That was reported before. Like I told you about this editing deal. We haven't done anything with this yet. This hours operation yet. We haven't done anything with that yet. Okay, let me see if I can spark my memory here a little bit more. Okay. I haven't looked at Arizona if that was fixed or not. After tabbing a state and county field address, yeah, we fixed that. We fixed the piece where if you are in a contact, let me get to a contact. And in a contact, you wanted to use the location address. this fills in automatically. So it fills in the location address, and then if this happens to be out of state, but let me get one if it's not out of state. Then it'll have a county in it. So let's see if we have. Let's see if we have one that's in Springfield. Here we go. Okay, so if I went in here and I edited this contact now, and I picked this, then it'll pick this wasn't filling in before. It's all filling in now. And using this contact, using the location address. This is fixed, as I said, and try to enter a completely different entity, add entity, and got county field, county, that's all fixed. Rory, this is one you had. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Only cause of nursing. Well, let me check this real quick. Let me actually check this over here. Over here, you had, let's see what you said you had here. Training eligible. Whoops. No, I'm sorry. It was in here. Here, training. This should be fixed too, by the way. Training. Search. Training, and you expected to see Illinois College of Nursing. It's in there. I don't know if all these have training in them or not. But they could have. So I'll have to see if that's still a problem. I'll have to see. I need to give you an answer on that.
There was a comment in the chat. I'm not sure which one it was to, but it said, let me check on that too. That might have been fixed since the last time I posted that comment in the UAT notebook. And it looks like Dan has his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
For the dates, is there a standard across basically all 2.0 that it's going to be 2 months, 2 date, 4 year? Or
Yes.
has
Yeah.
it? Okay. Because I was
That'll-
just wondering, like, I know like in Salesforce, when we have staff try and enter a date and they don't do all 4 digits for the year, then they get an error message, and and they're like, I got an error message, and they don't even read what the error message is. They just don't know. And so I was thinking 2 things with this. One, if that's the standard and you guys already defined that, then great. But as long as people can enter like 222 and it doesn't cause an error, and is there any instance where that additional 2-year requirement then causes screens to look a little funny? Like, do we even need that 4-year?
So every
Throwing it out
day, or every date field, we should have a calendar pop up in. So I was trying to get to here. Let me get to here real quick. So I just knew where one was. So you see what happens when you do this. So let's see. Let's try what you're saying. If I went over here and just said 24, it'll probably give me an error. See, it just says no. So I cannot actually type in a 24, or I have to type in a 4-digit number or select it.
I'm just wondering, like if you think of the grand scheme of things, I know some people might like to see the 4-digit year, but is it even necessary? And would some masking help with data entry? I don't know. If you think about like how many times a date is going to be actually entered, it's going to be zillions of times. And maybe I'm overthinking it or whatever, but like saving a couple keystrokes, does that especially if
Uh,
people used to
I
type.
don't know. I don't know if that can be,
I don't know.
I don't know if that can be done or not. I'm sure it can be done, but I
One
don't.
of the considerations is the way the data is reported federally and pulled from the system has to match the format that WIPS accepts through the Pearl, which is typically, you know, month, day, year. We would have to add some extra programming around all of that to make sure that if we did just do 2 years, the system on the back end is adding the appropriate 19 or 20 so that it can be federally reported in the appropriate format.
Right. The only place I know you're saying, well, what are we reporting that's 19? Well, birth dates, obviously. But yeah, a lot of services and stuff like that would not be. They're pretty more current, but we do have to have programming. It's a good point, Olivia. If we just let you put in 2 digits, then we have to have programming to decide, what century it's in.
It's something we can talk about with our programmers though to see the
Yeah.
level of effort to move to 2, but then still align with the necessary reporting requirement format.
Yep.
And I just put it out there and value everybody else's, comments or whatever. I just like most of the time, I won't go to the calendar and then click to drop the arrows and whatever. It's just easier for me as the accounting person to type in the numbers,
Yes.
And so I don't know, I'm done talking about it.
No,
Sorry.
I understand. And I do too. I don't like using the date pickers. And the reason I don't like using them is because I don't like fooling around with moving the months and the years, right? So in the date pickers, it's like it's great for current dates, right? Date pickers are great for stuff that's, 3 months either way of where you're at. But when you get into something like, hey, I want to put something in way in the future, right? Like on these relationships, for example, if I want to put the end date in 28, then I usually just type it in because I don't want to go into that calendar and go hit the year and go find the year and do all that. It's just too much time. So I'm totally with you, Dan, totally with you. So we'll look into that. This was from Kelly, and this might have been Kelly. I haven't seen this one yet, so I'm not going to comment on it. She's probably commenting on we haven't, and you all, I think I told you all this. I should have told them that, but this LWIA is not set yet. We're not setting anything in LWIA yet. I think you all figured that out. So let me cancel here, get back, just so you can all know, get you back to that spot. Actually, I don't even know where that was. She did that in, where is this? This is probably entity. I'm not even seeing where she saw that. This should be here. That doesn't mean anything. Eventually, that's going to be associated with the provider eventually, but we just haven't got that part wired up yet. So that's just a placeholder for now. Okay, let me get, this was also Kelly. I should probably look at hers beforehand. Okay, back to these. I think we've gotten these all fixed. This error message you had here, that's all fixed now. This menu locations. Oh, this must be on the entity view. Rory, I'm not sure. You're already in a location on this? Did you want to go back to okay, so I think I know what you're saying now. So if I go to so this is the entity and this has locations here, and you're saying if I'm in a location, it would be nice if I could jump to the location list instead of hitting this and going to a different location, you're thinking that if I had locations
Yeah, I almost forgot about that
within a
screen,
location. No, that's okay. I see
yeah,
what you're saying.
I think that was the gist of it, was that it seemed like I had to go back to entity list.
You
And
do. Yeah,
it
you
just
do. You're right.
was
It's driving down.
familiar,
Yeah.
again, what do they call it? Like muscle memory, where it's like an IWDS, I'm like, my mouse already knows to start going toward the bottom of the screen to go to cancel, to go back a screen, so I think it's just one of those, like, as I learn it and I'm like, oh, I got to go up left, and just, as I start to get used to that, it's probably wouldn't be as big a deal, but
Yeah, we kind of show things. One thing we do here in this that's different, and it'll take some training, muscle memory stuff, is you kind of drive into an entity, and within that entity page, it shows the locations where before in IWDS, when you were looking at the entity details, then you would go back to the left to show locations, and then it would show a list of locations, and you would go into that to show the details of a location. We kind of, once you're in the context of an entity, so once you're in the context of an entity here, we kind of keep you in there, and we show you the locations, we show you all the contacts, and then you go into a specific location, that's that location. So you would have to go to the entity to find,
actually, so where you were, maybe it meant to, like, in that menu under back to entity. So if you go into a location,
okay, let me go to the location. Yep.
so look in the menu, in the side menu where it says back to entity, the blue box. If you go under that, general information, context, I was saying, could you put a link? I think that's what I meant. Could you put a link to locations there, so that then you can just go back to the locations page? But again, I just, out of habit, I might be thinking of how it works in the current IWDS.
Yeah, you're thinking this is independent kind of where you're at. And it's like, so if you go back to the entity, it shows you all the locations.
I was just thinking.
Yeah, it's just it is different. That menu is kind of not independent. That menu is specific to that location you're in.
Got it.
This is a locations details menu, which a lot of our stuff is driven off of locations, right? So
that's tied to, like, scrolling within the page.
It's within that page. It's just within this page. This is just to help you so you don't have to go look for it. You can just, get right to where you want to get to.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think I'm trying to compare, like, locations, and I put something in one thing.
No, good point. I understand what you're saying. If we put it here, it would be, the only thing, it might, it would be
locations.
This is one click to locations, right? This is one click to locations.
Yeah.
They're both one click. I guess they're just both one click.
Yeah.
It's just that maybe you have to scroll a little bit, and that may be correctable, because we might be able to use this space more effectively. Then you wouldn't even have to scroll, because then it would be sitting like right there.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And I think that was it too, is that I keep forgetting, like, in IWDS, you can go list locations, and that locations itself is one screen. Whereas here, I mean, you've combined it, which is actually a good thing.
Yeah, we combined it.
The information combination, so that you're using the screen more effectively, just scrolling down a screen versus clicking into 3 different screens for content.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do a lot.
No, that's a good thing. Like I said, I'm just, like, out of habit, muscle memory. I'm thinking,
problem,
like, I just want to get to the list of locations.
Yeah, we've changed this.
And you saw that one too.
Since you've caught that too, and we've added the primary. So now, within a location, actually, I should say, we've added if you have a primary set.
Yeah, and like I said, like,
this one doesn't have a primary set for some reason, but this is active. That's primary. If I save that, then now we'll see which one is primary. I think that's you had something else here though too. Let me see what the other thing you had is. Oh, active. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Let me yeah, because you could have some inactives. That's a good point, Rory. Let me put a note to myself here on this.
Yeah, it's just because actually we just recently had this with trying to track down a provider that's got a lot of turnover, and then you can kind of know if they're not active, and we can't, maybe in the new system we will be able to, but we can't delete contacts. So we were in IWDS, I was going through like 4 or 5 contacts. And in IWDS, it's good because you can see when you pull up the list of contacts, it'll say primary, yes, active, yes, or no. So even if it's not the primary contact, if they're still active, it's like, well, let's try that one first versus the one that's been clicked as not active, because that person is no longer employed with the college or something, so.
Yep.
So no, thanks for addressing that.
Okay, so this one here, Crystal, let's see here. This one here is fixed. Or this is the same, I mean. This one here, I tested while I just opened. Our relationship numbers are attached to the main location. We did talk about this last week. We are bringing forward that location LWIN number, and we are allowing you. Oh, we're adding the capability of seeing multiple locations. We talked through this last week, but there is some upgrades in that area too coming on. They're not quite in there yet. This one here, adding funding source, one other above. When I did so, I got an error. Fund types must be selected, even though there was, oh, yeah, this was a little, we haven't really done too much with this. This was a little bit, so if I go into this here, I believe this is the way I can show this real quick. And if you go into one of these, the edit works just like the add does. Oh, no, it doesn't. I mean, if I add funding and I select something here, it was a little confusing here because I didn't know how to shut this window, I guess. And then it says must be selected. So that's still a problem, which is obviously selected until you click off of it. So we got a little bit of a vent problem here. We'll make sure we get that fixed. I don't know. I thought I saw that, but this is this the one we're on? Yeah, I still need to get that worked on. Okay, and then this one Chuck said, micro, but when I click through the counter to select start and end dates, I'm finding the counter did a weird jump to the top of the screen when I clicked on March 2025. Then returned to its normal position. I haven't seen that. Did it consistently in both the start and end boxes. Huh. Not sure what that means. Is Chuck on? Yeah, I don't know for sure. I'm gonna mess around with that. I'll put something in here to note to myself so we make sure we see if we can recreate that. And then the last thing here, this was, yeah, and we've fixed the service metric stuff and the services. Actually, Taylor did that for us. I don't think I have them loaded yet, but we're getting those names fixed and all that. Rory, you had something down here. Let's see. Hold on a minute. I'm missing something here. Choosing a bunch. Yeah. Okay. Don't like the select button on the right to get the list of services. Interesting. I agree with the above comments. I would like great opportunity to align the service. Yep. Working on that. What's the purpose of show all? Okay. The purpose of show all is you don't have to select them all when you configure it. So, let me go back here. Let me cancel this. Let's think this is in here. Okay. So if you take the show all off, it shows you only those that are selected. And you can see there's nothing selected on this particular one. And this shows you all the ones that are available. So if I said, oh, nothing's selected on this, you might miss that because it may look like those are all configured, but they're not. If I go in and edit this, and I do go all the way to here, you'll see they're not selected, but if I select some of these, and then I save that. Now, when I do the not show all, it just shows me those that are configured for this relationship. Hope everybody understands that now. It defaults to show all to show you the ones that are configured and not configured. But if you don't hit show all, it shows you ones that are configured. Okay, hopefully that's a little bit more understandable. And now, Rory, you got something here. I agree with all the comments. I'm not sure how the IWDS 2.0 system is going to handle reporting, but currently when I run certain reports, you can filter results by participants based on service and activity codes. Yes, you'll be able to do that. They're now service levels and services, but that's no big deal. I personally think it would be very helpful if you could include, as mentioned about the numeric codes. We don't have any numeric codes, by the way. Those were dropped. So it's interesting you brought that up, Roy. I think what you're saying here is, may look at this other, like they had like 120 was one of the programs, or 250 was a program, like maybe 250 was career services.
Yeah,
actually-
like 230 and then 24 would be like training services. But then if
So
you
the
get like
state PCO
225
folks,
career services, there's a whole list of what you would call then service level and services. The activity, there's a ton of activities.
yes,
As long as the names, as long as the nomenclature, it's going to be the same as
right.
how it is in the service matrix, then that's fine. As long as the names of the service level,
They couldn't
or again, we used to call activities, as long as the names are the same as what's currently or what's on the service matrix, then I guess I don't need the numbers. I just, again, creature of habit, I know how to look them up by the numbers. So that's all.
So yeah, the state folks said, why do we have those numbers on there? They don't mean anything. And we didn't carry them forward. But the names, the correct names, there might be a few that's been changed in this new service matrix, but I think they're pretty close to being all the same. And those names are what you use. They didn't see a purpose for the numbers. So now, no purpose, but you got to memorize, right? Okay. So I think that's it for now, and I think we're probably at our time. But several things. We're gonna get this out to UAT soon, so you'll be able to go back in and play around with it. We'll make sure we get an email out to everybody that says, hey, it's been refreshed with whatever version. Right now, that version is at the bottom of the screen. Right here, you can see this is UAT environment, and it's got 2495. So you'll see that number go up. As you can see over here in our development, we're ahead. We're 241039. We're a few versions ahead. And so we will, whenever you see this refreshed, this UAT refreshed right here, this UAT refreshed, this number will go up, and we'll be able to communicate based upon that. And we'll get an email out to everyone that says, hey, if you want to go back in and play around with UAT, feel free to, and we'll tell you what version is out there. And so in the future, when we get more and more, when we get releases more consistently out here, and we tell you that there's releases coming here, we're going to want you to put that release number. We'll tell you about that more than you probably want to hear, but we'll want you to put that release number in. Just it's easy just to copy it and put it in, so we know that we haven't addressed it, or we have addressed it based upon the release number. So we appreciate it. Appreciate all the feedback, and hopefully we're getting some of these things solved that you all found, and we'll get them out to back into your UAT as soon as possible. Any questions? Olivia, Taylor, Lynette, you have anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
Great.
I'm good.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. have a good day.